Good.
So we do this thing in Sacramento every year where a bunch of musicians get together and do cover bands. And
Ooh.
this year I called Joan Jett and the Black Hearts. So I'm going to be
Nice.
doing Joan Jett and the Black Hearts.
That's
It's pretty cool.
exciting.
Yeah.
All right. Here we go. It is Friday, January 25th, 2019. I am Micah Sargent, and right now we are going to talk about the secret history of iPhone SE, some potential future devices that we're looking at, Apple's shot on iPhone contest, and so much more, because this is the iMore Show. Joining us back again this week, the steadfast and ever true Lori Doggone Gill. How you doing, Lori?
It's a much shorter version of my nomenclature, doggone, instead of that big long thing that you came up with once so many years ago.
Yes, the official title is much longer. We've shortened it to Lori, open quote, doggone, close quote, Gill.
I like it.
And of course, vectorific Renee Ritchie. Hello, Renee.
I'm Micah Sargent. How you doing?
I'm doing well. It's chilly outside. The weather is frightful, but here indoors, it's delightful.
The ice melted, so now everywhere is flooding. We just need to go from snow to ice to flood here very quickly.
Is there grass? Do you get to have grass in Canada?
No, it's supposed to freeze again. So now all the snow that turned into a frozen world, that turned into water, is going to freeze, and then we'll just be ice skating.
Well, ice skating is fun, and hopefully that means less bugs when summer comes around. So,
yes.
Or does summer ever come around? I don't know.
Yeah, I was joking with our dear leader Kevin Mitchell when he said that he used to do a skidoo business, and I asked him if those are the best two weeks out of every year for him.
Just those 2 weeks and nothing else.
I don't know. I might. Canada keeps looking like a place that
better
I might
and better,
want to end
right?
up. Yeah.
Too bad you can't fly out here anymore.
Oh, right. Oh no! See, my partner is overseas in Australia right now.
Oh,
and
no!
I've been talking to him. He's going to be coming back at the end of February, and I'm like, "We'll see if you can come back at the end of February because these air traffic controllers are all about to leave." So
we finally get a Shake Shack at LaGuardia, and they close it.
Doggone it!
Yeah, I'm supposed to go to London in a couple of weeks, and I'm just hoping that things get better and not worse within that time frame.
Oh, because then you get to hit Brexit too. That'll be fun.
So much. What was I thinking?
But at least your privacy will be better protected because you'll be under what is it?
The Queen.
You'll be under the Queen. That's the one I'm looking for. The privacy protections over there. Anywho, we should go ahead and break into the show. Renee, I know you see this is some insider baseball here for folks. When we talk about the videos that Renee does, it's genuinely Lori or me pitching these ideas. It's not Renee saying, "Hey, let's talk about this video that I've done."
In fact, Renee is always like, "Can we talk about something else, please? I'm embarrassed."
Yeah, his cheeks get a little red, and he's like, "Oh, no." But I do think that it is good to we don't have to summarize or anything like that, but I do think that it's awesome to talk about a new video, Renee, that you worked on, and maybe you can give some sort of background that you haven't shared elsewhere, because you talked about how you had been wanting to do this and it was in a different style and it took you a lot longer than you expected. So can you talk about maybe what this video is, and then sort of a little bit about the making of process?
Yeah, I mean, sure. So one of the things that's always fascinated me is the production process. There's a lot of movies that I like the DVD extras for more than the movie themselves. And even for like books, I love like all the stuff about like how Tolkien or, somebody else built their world that all these characters live in and inhabit. And that process is always amazing to me. And the iPhone has always struck me as like one of the biggest cultural phenomena of this generation. It's just something that literally you can see up till before the iPhone, all the BlackBerries, all the Windows mobile devices, all the Nokias, and then iPhone. And suddenly everything looks like an iPhone for many, many years and works like it. It was really something that changed our culture, that mainstreamed the smartphone, that sort of opened up technology to a lot more people. And how it came to be made was fascinating for me. I don't cover everything in this video, so there's more stuff to talk about. But there were these huge decisions within Apple, like the original project was purple, platform experience purple, because Apple liked color projects back then. And they had two candidates. One was literally an iPod phone, an iPod where the little wheel would be a rotary dialer, because they thought it'd be too hard to make P2. But the P2 team was so driven, they managed to get it out first. But there were also all these arguments within the P2 team, like, did they have a physical keyboard or a virtual one? Did they use web for the interface, or something like the Cocoa APIs that were used for AppKit? And they eventually settled on what became the iPhone. But the people who disagreed, spoiler for a future video, went off to make the Palm Pre, which had a physical keyboard and web interfaces. So there's so much history in all the choices and decisions they made and how hard they worked. Like giving up their families and stinking a pizza for like years.
There's also to get like this phone done. There's something really kind of great and exciting when you think about the team that started at Apple trying to perfect the iPhone, and they wanted a keyboard. They went off and made the most popular phone with a keyboard. So, they're like, it was two different camps, and you just can't have everything. So these like fantastic, amazing developers just went and perfected a physical keyboard on a phone. So I don't know, it's just kind of great to see like the idea back when smartphones didn't really exist, or if they did, they were just not very smart. And the excitement around it, and the company, the people who like worked so hard to give us what we have today on smartphones is kind of awesome.
Yeah, it's an amazing story, and I love sharing it. And I got some interviews from the Wall Street Journal had posted, and some that the Computer Science History Museum had posted, and some that I did with Guy English back in the debug days, and some of the early Vector episodes. I know, and I just tried to put it into a narrative. So I hope it worked. It was an experiment. I hope it worked, but I'm going to try to do some more of them.
I think it worked quite well, and it seems to have received some good feedback so far. And folks, if you haven't seen it yet, definitely go check it out. We'll include a link in the show notes so you can
tell Renee what you thought of it. Even if you thought it was bad, tell him, because he's all in for constructive criticism too.
I'll cry for a little while, and then I'll build myself back up again.
Yeah, as long as it's constructive, right? So go learn about the secret history of iPhone and how we got to the phone we have today. All right, Lori Gill, you are the tried and true champion of the iPhone SE.
I'm so excited. I don't even wait for you.
Why do we need an intro? You want to go back to the small phone lifestyle. Yes. What's going on here?
So on this last Saturday, a few days ago, at this point, actually, it's been almost a week.
Time flies.
I know. Apple put the iPhone SE on its clearance site. Of course they did, because they pulled it from their main store and they've got a bunch of stock to get rid of, right? So they're putting it up on the clearance store. But it sold out like really fast. And obviously it's limited supply, so of course it's going to sell out. But to me, and I know that we've had this discussion before, that small phone people are a smaller group of people, and that's why there's no more SE. But we are so passionate that we will gobble up every last iPhone SE in existence so that we can hold on to that. And anytime I write an editorial about the iPhone SE, I get lots of people that say the same thing. They're passionate about their phone size. They're passionate about this 4-inch phone size. And I think my SE is actually in the other room because I was using it.
See?
Yeah. I've talked to people who they are still using an SE, even though it's a couple of years old. Actually, my partner still uses an SE. He's loves it, and he doesn't want to upgrade because he likes the size of it. So I have this sort of passion, just kind of like the fire came back up again when I saw first that the SE was available to buy, and at Apple at all, even though it was in their clearance section, it was available to buy. And then the fact that it sold out so fast was just, to me, just more evidence that people love a 4-inch phone. They love that small phone. And there's certainly the camp of people who use a smartphone just for a phone, for texting, checking maps, and maybe just using the internet a little bit, but it's not their main sort of source of the internet and the World Wide Web. And then there's people who use their phone as their main form of anything relating to the internet or to the web, or computers or anything like that. And so the camp that uses their phone for a lot of things, obviously a 4-inch phone is not good for them, that they want a bigger size phone. The people that have an iPad, have a Mac, have all the other things that they need, and we just want a convenient phone to get us from point A to point B and maybe check a couple things while we're out. We love that small phone, and we love that that it's so easy to hold and easy to take with us and fits in, the smallest of spaces. And we don't need a bigger screen, because what we do on a bigger screen, we do on something like an iPad. I have an iPad. I don't need a large iPhone. I need a small iPhone that I can take with me with more convenience. And I want that. And I think I don't just want another version of SE. I want the same casing size, but I want it to take up the whole screen, like the way the iPhone 10 and the iPhone 10s and the iPhone 10R, they all do. Give me the small 4-inch casing and give me a screen that's almost as big as the, standard 6 or 7 or 8. Like that, it can be done. It certainly wouldn't be as cheap. And I know that that's a real driving factor in why the SE has been popular and why the clearance version was so popular, is that it was so inexpensive. The price dropped to $249 for the 32 gig. So yeah, it's an inexpensive way to get into Apple. But I would also argue that there's enough of us out there that want a 4-inch phone that we would love to bring it back. So I'm starting my hashtag iPhone SE Unite. Everybody out there that loves the 4-inch form factor, hashtag it, spread it around. I just watched the Fire Festival documentary. We can make this bigger than the Fire Festival documentary if we just get out there and spread the word that we want this phone. And maybe Apple will go, we'll put it on our list of things to do.
I love this. The idea of this phone is sort of the I've had friends who have, well, I should say, yeah, I guess I'd call them friends. I don't know, older friends who have kids that are like my siblings' ages, and they've got iPhone SEs or iPhone SE size devices that are sort of the the punishment phone, in the sense that the phone that they got, the iPhone 7 or the iPhone 10R, their child shattered the phone somewhere, and well, Mom, I accidentally broke my phone. Well, now you're going to be carrying around the SE for a while. Like
the SE of shame.
It is a budget. It is a budget device at this point, but it's still like, it's a great phone, and it provides everything that you can do with iOS, and so it's still like, it gives the kid back the ability to contact and do all the things that they would do on their phone and the apps and all that, but it's not the phone that they had in the beginning. I'm curious, Lori, do you think that is there anything, because you talk about, like, for you, the thing about the phone, the iPhone SE that's great is that you have an iPad or you have a Mac to do all of your stuff on. And so whenever you're on the go and you just want a device for communication and quick things, you can just use the SE for that. Do you think there's a future where a wearable could actually replace that need? Because a lot of people talk about how our Apple Watches are sort of becoming that space between a big thing that we sort of have at home or have in our pocket that we pull out occasionally. I'm just curious, do you think there's a future where a wearable could replace your iPhone SE needs?
I think that it does already. I think that's, that's kind of why that's why I don't use an SE, and that's why anymore I have the 10 and the 10s, and actually I do like that one a lot. And I think that's why Apple said, well, we don't need SE anymore, because we have large phones and we have tiny little Apple Watches. So people don't need that in between. But no, it's not about anything that makes sense. It's a passion. It's true.
I love
it's
that.
A passion for this thing that is unloved and unwanted. It's this sort of, I don't know, it's like just a feeling of, I want my small phone, and you're not giving me my small phone. I can't really explain what I mean by that, but it's certainly more emotionally driven than it is driven by what makes sense. Anybody who doesn't love and actually prefer an iPhone SE or any other 4-inch phone, I don't think that they can totally grasp what I mean, because like you, they're saying, well, you know, the larger phone is still, it's small, it's fine. You can still use it with one hand. It's got a bigger screen and that's better. Or, well, you have an Apple Watch for, you know, the convenience of not having to pull your phone out when you need to just, you know, quickly get a map or text somebody. And it's only those of us who like are passionate about the 4-inch phone that can really like understand amongst ourselves what we mean when we say that the 4-inch phone is better than a larger phone. I don't know. I wish I had somebody on with me to like help put this into words for me better. It's definitely not logical.
A great job.
Yeah,
no, it is. I would say it is logical. There, I mean, some people want a tiny tablet, and wanting a small phone is not any less ridiculous. I mean, they're all justified. And the cool thing is, when markets begin to mature, and that's the nice, I call it the saturationing still, because it reminds me of Highlander. What happens is you have to start segmenting them. Before, not everybody had a smartphone, so the point was to make a phone that would appeal to the most people. And Apple's done that through, you know, they've gotten larger over the years, but once it's mature, you can start playing around. Here's the phone for people who do want a tiny tablet. Here's the phone for people who really just want a phone to stick in their pocket, to stick in their, you know, fanny pack, not to single anybody out, and take with them. And you can make all of these different things because you're no longer trying to get people to buy a phone. You're trying to get them to buy their next phone. And you got to be so much more creative to do that.
Yeah. And that's kind of my hope, is that I don't see it happening soon, but in a couple of years, I think that there's going to be a trend back towards smaller phones. And I think that Apple is probably, you know, I don't think that they're just dissolving a smaller phone forever. I think that they're going to keep it in their back pocket, keep it in their tiny back pocket. And maybe in a couple of years, once the trends shift and we start seeing like a bigger variety of phones and a shift toward people just wanting a smaller phone in their pockets, that they'll bring that back out.
Well, I had a wacky idea. I had it this morning because I was looking, there's rumors about a new iPad mini coming out, and Apple has iPad Pro and in two sizes. They have the 11-inch and the 12.9-inch. And they have a 9.7-inch iPad non-Pro. And the rumor is the iPad mini is also going to be a non-Pro. So now you'll have a 9.7-inch iPad mini non-Pro, 7.9 and 9.7 non-Pros, 11 and 12.9 Pros. And part of the reason that iPad Pro, I think, can get more expensive and more audacious is that you have these other iPads that are getting less expensive. So yes, it sucks that the iPad Pro is like $700 now, but hey, look at how cheap the regular iPad is getting. And I would love Apple to do that with phones. So instead of people saying the 10 and the 10S and the 10S Max are so expensive, go even lower than the 10R. Have a 10R that's the iPhone SE size and a 10R that's slightly bigger, and have two separate phone lines. One that you can let get expensive because the other one is more budget friendly every time.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Just kind of mixing it up so that people of different like financial categories have the option of going all in with the most expensive or choosing something that's more budget friendly, but still a great phone. I think the reason I ended up switching over to 10 last year and now 10S this year instead of keeping the SE is that it's 3 years old. Like there's no denying
the camera difference is real.
If I didn't work in the industry that I work in, I would still be using an SE because that would have that satisfies all of my needs. But because I have to kind of be on top of the most current kind of technological things, I switched over to 10 because it was the most comfortable phone that Apple had made since SE. So the 6 and 6 Plus, 7, 7 Plus, 8, 8 Plus they were uncomfortable for me. I didn't like them. And the 10, when I got it, I even thought, I'll try it for a few months, but I'll probably switch back to SE. And it fit in my hand better. It's still a little too big, but it's certainly much closer to the SE than any of the other ones. And at that point, I just needed to switch. So,
and you have like Georgia and Christina Warren, all these people going around with their Maxes saying, it really is a tiny tablet. I use 2 hands. Don't you judge me.
Yes, exactly. I don't use 2 hands. I use 1 hand. That's the way I do it. For
me, I totally respect that sort of team nature and community that's sort of based around, because I see people quite a bit actually talk about their love of those smaller screen devices. And I think just the other day I saw somebody share a commercial from Apple that was talking about how other phones were huge, but our phones, you can reach across them with your thumb. Back in the day when Apple wasn't doing those.
That was the iPhone 5 commercial. I remember that. Thumb friendly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think that's, that's wonderful. I loved that phone style, and it made me really happy when the iPad, the new iPad sort of takes on that
edge.
Yes, that nice edge. There's something about that edge that's just very nice. And that's what I always loved about gorge. That's what I've always loved about the MacBook Pros that I didn't like about the MacBook Air. The MacBook Pro has that nice rounded but flat edge versus the MacBook Air, which was tapered. So there's something about the design style that I will always appreciate and always enjoy. And I think I don't know where it is right now, but I do have an iPhone SE knocking around here somewhere too.
See, you can't even get rid of it.
Probably stole it.
And like, I typically one that will gazelle or get, like I said, I've given my iPad mini to a family member and different devices to different family members, but that SE I don't want to get rid of. Yeah, Lori probably did steal it. But I don't want to get rid of it because I love, there's something about that design that felt right and felt accurate. And I think now it's less about design for me at this point and more about sort of usability and what makes sense for what I need to get done or want to get done on a device.
Yep. And alrighty. I don't begrudge you that.
Thank you. So let's go ahead and move on to talk about, well, it's kind of an argument about privacy regulations and about sort of keeping our data safe, and especially for folks who might not know exactly how their data is being used and how their activity is being tracked and used. Apple gets, or is it Google? Who gets paid for? Google pays Apple. Google pays Apple a boat ton of money, a boatload of money to be able to be the default search provider in Safari. And I think elsewhere too, like if you swipe down from Spotlight search and type something in, then when you tap search on the web, it's going to use Google. If you have, if you don't have everything turned on that makes it so that you can't be tracked, then Google is collecting that information as you search and tying it to your account and this and that and the other. And so there is a real argument about whether it is good for Apple, which is a company that champions privacy, to offer this up as the method for search as the default, especially, as I said, when some folks don't even realize that that's what's going on here. So Renee, you put together an article just published just yesterday. Should Apple remove Google as default search?
This is thing I've seen this pop up a lot recently, especially, like you said, Apple champions privacy. And I think the comments that come out from that are, well, yeah, but you still let people use Facebook and Google. And, why do you do that? And more specifically, the fact that Apple receives compensation from Google for making it the default search program. That's even more, it's more than just, well, as a user of technology, I have the choice to whether or not I'm going to use Facebook or not. With the default Google, that's not even a choice. That's like set in there and Apple's getting money for it. So it's interesting, but from where I'm standing, there's a couple of things about this. And number one,
you're sitting.
Where I'm sitting, Google or Apple, if I recall, when Apple first was using Siri and search, it wasn't Google, right? Was it Bing? Does anyone remember
back? I think it was Google, then Bing.
Google, then Bing, then Google.
Then Bing?
And now Bing is back. Now Bing is just images, and it's gone back to Google first. Or there's they've used both.
And Bing does translate stuff too, if I remember correctly. Like not Siri's translate, but it's very weird.
But what I'm getting at is there was a point where Apple had decided, though it could have been because of the money, but I think it's because they decided that it was a better user experience, because Google really does supply you with a lot of search information. So they were providing us with the service that we wanted, that we expected, and it was a better experience for us to have the bigger search engine, Google, to get the things that we need out of it. That's one thing. I do believe that it was a choice based on a user experience. And another, anybody who sort of stands on a soapbox, and no slight on Apple, but they stand on a soapbox about privacy, they are going to be attacked stronger for any slight, any inconsistency. It's the same with anybody who has strong religious convictions, or vegans and vegetarians, all that kind of stuff. If you're very loud and proud about your particular cultural stance, people are going to try to knock you down. I think just in our brains, there's some level of, I'm not as good as this person, and therefore I want to bring them down to my level. So I'm going to find everything that's wrong with them. So, while lots of other companies are, using the same things, same companies like Google, and even more nefarious in some circumstances, and they're not getting any attention called on them. Apple is such a champion for privacy that it's people are just like, well, how can you be private if you're using Google, for example?
Renee, obviously no need to summarize, but the question is, should Apple remove Google as default search? What are some of the points that you put forth?
I think that the money distorts everything. Like you can't have an ethical conversation about it as long as the money is there. And the money is reportedly hitting 8 billion, up to 12 billion maybe this year, which is so much money. It's more than Apple makes from a lot of their products. And it just shows how valuable iOS users are to Google if they're willing to pay that much money for default search status. So I think you like, as long as the money's there, then Apple, should rightly be questioned on this, given their use of Lori's soapbox for privacy. Take the money away, and I think you have two conflicting goals. One is the user experience really is, to Lori's point, so much better with Google, but the privacy is so much better with DuckDuckGo. So what I would like to see, my best solution for this would be the first time you launch Safari on any new device or any major update, it gives you just a screen that says, who do you want to be your default search engine? And you can even have Google at top. You can even have Google checked at first if you want to, but at least that way people are forced to think about it. And they can say, nope. They can say either, yeah, I don't mind Google, or I actually think that it's worth giving my data to Google in exchange for their better results. Or you can say, nope, and hit DuckDuckGo and go. And that way, at least, no matter what choice you make, it's you have a choice, and it's at least a partially informed one.
Yes, that default. That's sort of the whole argument in a lot of cases, is, and Tim Cook has made this argument, or has made this observation himself, that one of the biggest issues with all of these privacy policies and where we're giving over our data and things like that, it's just opt in, and we don't see a lot of those things. And so for this to be sort of invisible, and it's and the argument, of course, can always be made in the reverse, that it's not entirely invisible and that people could find it if they wanted to. And yes, but day to day, no, people aren't seeing this kind of thing. And I think that it should be, you should be given the option to understand, hey, you are going to be using Google for this, and that's okay if that's what you want to do, but we want to let you know. And so you get to make that choice. The choice should be in the users. The choice should be available to the user, and the choice should be sort of put in front of the user, as opposed to just sort of hiding in the background.
We should point out that, because some people don't know this, you can go into settings, Safari search engine, and change it from Google to DuckDuckGo or to Yahoo or to Bing, if anybody still uses Yahoo or Bing for real world search.
please don't use Yahoo. Don't use Yahoo for. I just said on Twitter, I was like, people, you're using Yahoo for email. Please stop using Yahoo. Just don't use Yahoo.
Yeah. But you can switch it to DuckDuckGo. It's not like you're not locked to Google, so you have that choice. It's not something most people are aware of.
And Renee, will you quickly go through how to do that?
Yeah, so just tap settings, tap Safari, tap search engine, and then choose. It's going to be set to Google if you've never changed it before, and then just tap on DuckDuckGo or Bing if you work for Microsoft, I guess.
Yeah. So, did you include? We have an article. I was just going to pull.
It's in the video. I don't know if it's in the article.
Okay, sweet. There is an article from 2011 that I can update. There was a tip on how to change the default search engine. So we might update that so that you have that information available. It's a super simple thing to do, and that way you'll know how to do so. All right, let's go ahead and talk about our last thing before we head to our sponsor. Apple News is finally coming to Canada. Is it going anywhere else, or is it just Canada right now?
So my guess is Apple bought Texture last year. Texture was a subscription magazine service, and one of the partners in Texture was Rogers, which is one of the big carriers. It's like the Canadian version of AT&T. So the Texture infrastructure is already in Canada, and I think Apple has actually stated that they're going to be folding Texture into News. So if all of that is already built out for Canada, it was probably easier for them to add Canada next than any other country. So, and if people are curious, it's not just flipping a switch and making the app work there. You can already change your region and use News anywhere. But Apple hires a bunch of editors who go through and sift through all the news and try to make smart choices about what to show you. And they also line up a bunch of partner publications to publish natively into Apple News format, so that you get a really good experience when you go through those articles. So a month or so ago, or 2 months ago, they started advertising jobs for Canadian editors. So we got suspicious. And then a few weeks ago, you started seeing Canadian publishers publish natively to Apple News, and you're like, ah! And then in iOS 12.2 beta that came out yesterday, they have the news app for all of us Canadians, en anglais et en français, les deux langues, to both languages.
But what he said. This is exciting, and I want to continue to see Apple News spread to other countries, obviously, and that folks will have access to that.
And there's a hint of premium in there too. Apple News Premium.
Ooh. See, I use Apple News as my method for staying up to date on what is going on. I used to follow, because I had to when it was my job, to follow a whole lot of world news and political news and US news and this news and that news and sad news and all that kind of thing. And I gave myself permission to not pay attention to that whenever I stopped working at that company. And so now I use Apple News notifications from different outlets to get sort of the basics of what's going on during the day. And then if there's anything that gets popped up on my notifications, then I can just tap on that and read more about it. So I really do like Apple News for that reason. And also for sharing articles back and forth, I can always trust that it's going to be an easy to read experience, that it's going to look the same way whenever, you know what I mean? That all of those things are easy for someone else to see. I love Apple News's sort of format, and I've done a lot of playing around with the Apple News format and publishing my own stuff through the Apple News platform just to play around with it, and it's pretty fun. So I'm always excited when a new publication tries out Apple News, and the fact that it's coming to more countries means that more publications will probably be interested in putting their stuff there. Any other thoughts on Apple News, Lori Gill, before we move on to next stuff?
No, other than it's very exciting that Apple News is finally coming to Canada, and just like you said, hopefully will make its way to many other countries around the world.
It took a while to put all those U's into everything. We just had to go stick U's in everything.
Yeah, I was actually just thinking that it must be very difficult to create a localized user experience that includes local and international
America no use, Canada use, Britain use, but S's, Canada S's, not Z's. I mean, the whole world is just terrible.
But even yes, but even outside of the sort of like nuances, I think it's better to have a news aggregate that works well for each country and kind of capitalizes on the important things there than to just make one blanket one that's available around the world that is a bad user experience for people outside of whatever the main country it is. Like the United States, it's very sort of ethnocentric to assume that everybody's going to read and follow news the same way we do in the US. So to create like a news, like a better working news program for each different country, I think is a great idea. It's a bummer that it takes so long.
Agreed. And well put. All right, folks, I am very excited to talk about a new sponsor here on the iMore show. It's Eero. Eero is the awesome method for getting connected to Wi-Fi in your home. It is a home Wi-Fi system. That means you're going to get multiple points of connection throughout your home. And that is awesome because you're going to get total network protection with Eero and its Eero Plus service. So once you get your router set up, your Eero router and the Eero beacons, which I'll talk about in a second, the Eero Plus system that comes included with or is rather an option for you, it is pretty cool. So Eero Plus is a simple, reliable security that defends all your home's devices against threats such as malware and spyware, phishing attacks, and for folks who want to have more lock-ins on their home network, unsuitable content. So the combination of your Eeros with the Eero Plus service provides complete protection for your network and all the devices, and of course, those who use them as they connect to the internet. So what exactly does Eero Plus do? Well, it blocks malicious and unwanted content across your entire network. So when devices are connected to your network, then those malicious sites won't be able to get to your devices. There's advanced security because they check sites against a huge database of millions of known threats. And Eero Plus prevents you from accidentally visiting those sites without slowing anything down. You can also use content blocking, and they've got this fancy feature, ad blocking. You can get rid of annoying ads and pop-ups on all your devices. Ad blocking also improves load times if you are going to ad heavy sites. There are that provide an even faster streaming experience. Also with Eero Plus, you get third-party security apps. That includes VPN protection from Encrypt.me. I think that's just called Encrypt.me. Password management from 1Password and antivirus software from Malwarebytes. I have used Eero Plus with my home Eero network, and I love having those three extras: the Encrypt.me encryption for VPN, the Malwarebytes software if I'm worried about viruses for whatever reason, and then password management from 1Password. I already use that. Now I have a locked-in family account and can add people to my network. All right, let's talk about the Eero itself. The single router model just doesn't work for our high bandwidth world. So you can see Lori and Renee, if you're watching, are holding up an Eero. That's that rectangle of squircle, I guess is the best way to put it, is square/circle. And then the tiny Eero beacon. What you need is a distributed system. And with Eero, you can install an enterprise-grade Wi-Fi system in your home in just a few minutes. The Eero app lets you manage your network from the palm of your hand, so you'll know just how many devices are connected at any given point. And traditional routers, they don't push software updates to their customers, so you're left vulnerable to cyber attacks and stuff. Eero updates automatically. You're always going to have the latest and greatest features. And of course, they've got incredible customer support. So once again, I love that Eero Plus edition, as well as my Eero devices, including the Eero beacon, which comes with a little nightlight in the bottom, which is kind of nice. If you would like to check out Eero, then you're going to head to Eero.com/iMore and use the promo code iMore so you can check out the Eero beacon system. Thanks so much to Eero. Again, that's Eero.com/iMore. and use the promo code iMore at checkout to get $100 off the base unit with 2 beacons. So you get an Eero router plus 2 beacons to plug in all around your house and blanket your home in Wi-Fi connection. Thanks again to Eero for sponsoring this week's episode of the iMore Show. Let's go ahead and move on to talk about some previews for future products.
Renee, you had mentioned that there were rumors about a iPad mini coming.
Ooh.
Yes.
Talk about it.
Oh
yeah. Tell us about.
No, let's keep it. No.
Yeah.
So I mean, there've been rumors for a new iPad Mini for a while. I guess ever since the minute Apple ships one product, the rumors for the next version already start because people decide what they want to see in it. And when the iPad Pro came out, there were rumors of an iPad Mini Pro, but those sort of died away quickly. And then we waited, and the years went by, and the next year went by, and we really haven't heard anything about the iPad Pro. The iPad Mini since the iPad Mini 4 shipped in 2015. And then last year we started hearing that because the 9.7-inch iPad was so successful, the low end one, the education one, that Apple was considering going even lower and bringing back the iPad Mini. So what they did in part to make the new the 9.7-inch iPad cheaper was they got rid of the laminated screen and they went with a non-laminated screen. And then they added Apple Pencil support. So the iPad Mini 4 currently has a laminated screen, which is better than the 9.7-inch iPad, but it doesn't have pencil support. So an iPad Mini that has a cheaper screen, but pencil support, and it's a little bit cheaper, could be really sweet for people who are just looking to get into the iPad market with a small, capable device, with a modern processor, maybe an A10. So it's very similar to last year's 9.7-inch, but just in the 7.9-inch form factor.
Do you think they're going to keep the price low on this? So right now, the 9.7-inch iPad is actually less expensive than the iPad Mini, right?
Yeah, no laminated screen. The laminated screen is expensive.
So then, if they're going to do that, how low will the Mini go? If
I don't know,
you can really drop the price of that.
$279. I mean, I feel like a price is right now. Mike is going to bet $0. Lori's going for $1.
I think that's pretty exciting. Renee, I know you have a Mini, but Micah, do you have an iPad Mini?
I did have an iPad Mini. It was my favorite device. I gave it to my grandma when I upgraded to the iPad Pro 9.7 way back when, and then now to the 10.5. So I don't have it with me, but that was my favorite device for so long. And my grandma, to this day, she's still using it and loves that device. And she doesn't pull out her laptop ever really because she can do everything that she wants to do on that. But it's small enough to where if she needed to take it with her, she can slip it in her purse and go about her merry business.
And I think Apple has already sort of established that there are 2 categories of iPad. There's a Pro model that has a lot of great things. It's really fancy. It's really fast. It's super awesome. And then there's the not Pro models, which are awesome, but not as awesome. And to update iPad Mini to fit into the not Pro category, so it's less expensive and it's significantly smaller, but just like you're saying with your grandma, the perfect tablet for a lot of people. I think this is I had gotten to the point where I've had friends ask me whether or not they should buy the current model iPad Mini or something else like the 9.7-inch iPad, and I just say don't even. iPad Mini's over, just move on. But I love this idea that it might come to fruition, that we might see a new model iPad Mini that has the more current technology, but also not the most advanced technology, so they can keep the price really low. The world doesn't seem to have picked up on this smaller tablet, though. It was such a big deal for a while, but the big companies aren't putting out small tablets anymore.
Yeah, and is that because they're putting out big phones?
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, people used to buy a phone and then maybe an iPad Mini, and then now they could probably think, oh, do I really want to buy 2 things? Can I just buy an iPhone Plus or an iPhone Max and not have to get the iPad Mini? Or maybe they think I can get a bigger phone and then, oh, I'm not going to take my tablet with me, but I can get a bigger tablet and leave it at home. And then it escalates. You go from the iPhone SE, the iPad Mini, and the iPad Air to the iPhone Max, the iPad Max, and the iMac, and just everything escalates.
I I don't know that like I think that there's always there's always a market. Well, I shouldn't say there's always a market, because I'm sure there's like a triangle device that cuts your finger whenever you hold it. Obviously, there's probably a very, 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 very small market for that. But even then, I'm sure there's somebody out there who would buy that. So I think there's always a market for these different devices.
Do you remember? Sorry, do you remember Derek Kessler's tweet where he would tweet every screen size that Samsung made, and eventually got too long to fit in a tweet? And it was it was like 5 inches, 5.1 inches, 5.2 inches, 5.4 inches, 5.9, 6.7, 6.8, 8.2, and it just it got too big to fit in a tweet, and he had to stop.
I didn't know that.
They literally made a size for everybody.
That's amazing. And so, yeah, I think that you either try to get everybody or you try to get a few people, but regardless of sort of whether it makes sense business wise, I've always liked the iPad Mini, and it would be super cool if we get a new one and it has, the basic features for the person who's just after a simple tablet device that they can sort of use as a computer. So hopefully.
2 words, Micah Sargent, or 3 words: digital field notes.
Digital field notes. Yes. I mean, I've got my actual field notes here. Give me a digital version.
Mini, you write into it and it all gets backed up online.
Yes. So, but see, then it needs to be really inexpensive. If it's just doing not really inexpensive, but it needs to be inexpensive if it's just doing the one thing.
But it has unlimited pages.
Yeah, there's that company that's got an e-ink display with a stylus that sort of is trying to be the Star Trek option, I guess. To
you should hire Stephen Hackett. Just let him design that product.
It's Newton, but better. Okay, let's go ahead and move on. I want to talk about something, Lori, that you spotted that I found very fascinating. There appear to be some not companies, but bands that might not be real, that people are being forced to listen to on Spotify. It's very strange. It's a very strange thing that's going on. But quickly to explain, if you don't have a Spotify account or if you haven't used it in a while, every year at the end of the year, they have been doing this thing for a while where you can go and get your Spotify Wrapped information. And it basically just shows you your year in music, what you've listened to, what your top songs were, top genres, etc. Many people, or not many people, but some people were posting that their Spotify accounts were hacked. And in those situations, their top artists came out to be these artists like Berganulo 5, Brat Night, DJ Brew.
Wait, isn't Bergaluno 5 your favorite band? I
mean, see, I've been listening to them since before they were cool, before they were part of this hacking thing. I can name all of their albums. But these accounts or these bands don't have online presences, really. Nobody can find them anywhere else. Their songs are super short and very could have been easily replicated. It's the idea that possibly these Spotify accounts were hacked and then they were driving up listens of these bands, and these bands aren't real, but instead are people trying to make money off of listens by hacking Spotify. This is like you trading, like giving someone a nickel and they give you 6 pennies. And you just have to do that for the rest of your life. And yeah, by the end of your life, you have made, I don't know, $100,000 or something by giving up your nickels for 6 pennies. But it just seems like there's a better way to make money than the point blah, blah, blah percentage that you get off of listens from hacked accounts. What is going on here, Lori?
Well, I mean, I think the BBC was saying that like tens of thousands of clicks on one person's account, you do that across a bunch of people and you're actually starting to get a little bit of money here. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I'm trying to see where they say, but so somebody had posted a tweet that, oh, my account was hacked, which is what initially a lot of people thought. And this person had their sort of year wrap, and the top listener was one of these, actually more than one of these artists that most people hadn't heard of. And if each account had that same situation going on, you're really kind of you're going for it. What's surprising to me is that Spotify didn't catch on to this. They didn't notice that. They do have tools in place to catch illegitimate music and illegitimate clicks and listens and things like that. So the fact that this one got kind of like, it made it through and was unnoticed until there were some people on Twitter who thought their accounts were hacked, that it started coming up, and that Spotify caught on to it and said, oh, wait, I think all of the accounts have been deleted, which means that, Spotify did catch something and they did remove that. So, that's something. There's also, the BBC also mentions that in September of 2018, I think it was, I was actually looking at my Spotify to see if I had anything that I hadn't listened to that was on my recently played. I don't, no offense to Spotify, but I don't listen to Spotify that much, but it's just because I use Apple Music all the time. I think Spotify is a great source for music. So it's not for any reason that I don't use it. But there are songs on there that I don't recognize, but it could be that it was on a playlist that just kind of made it through and I never noticed what the song was. So anyway, there in, I believe, September of 2018, Facebook had yet another security leak where access tokens were affected by it. So there's some discussion that what might have happened is that through that Facebook leak, people who use Spotify use Facebook to log into Spotify might have been affected by that. And even though Facebook said it canceled all those access tokens, there just might have been some that got through, or a lot, I guess, that got through. So potentially, if your account has something like this on it, it's possible that it was part of something that had happened back in September with a Facebook leak. And that they do not have your password, though there's nothing wrong with changing your password. That's always a good thing. Update and change your password. It's not that you've been hacked. It's that somehow some brilliant hacker has figured out a way to use those stolen access tokens to just start making it look like you've been listening to music that you've never been listening to. It's actually kind of brilliant. I mean, I don't want to say that it's good to hack, but whoever did this actually they did a really good job of hiding themselves by just acting like you listening to music on Spotify, so that it wasn't caught. It's only caught because all these people are saying, I've never listened to this band before, yet it's one of my top artists. How is that possible?
Yeah, and I guess so it says $500 to $600. That's not bad if it's, for the most part. I mean, it's still breaking into people's accounts and that kind of thing, but for the most part, it's fairly innocent. We're not condoning this, but there are much worse things that could have been done with a username and password, and so to come up with these accounts that. What I find fascinating too is they call the genre mystery core, where it's sort of just short songs that don't. Boy, what an interesting thing.
We have a new genre of music now. It's people who hacked into your account and put their stuff up on your Spotify
10,000 times, even though you don't listen to their music.
It's actually so. Being part of the music world, I know that there are there's PR marketers out there, nefarious PR marketers out there, who will promise a band, 100,000 followers on Twitter, for example. And those nefarious PR companies will create or buy fake Twitter accounts that will then follow that band, so that band looks like they're really popular and really famous. This almost seems like an even more nefarious version of that, of falsely propping up bands through some sort of fake way of creating like a bigger presence for them. The thing is, though, I think I don't know these bands again, so I'm not sure how real they are or what their music is like. But the way the BBC describes it, it actually sounds like they're not even necessarily real bands. So that doesn't really seem to kind of jive with that idea. It says in the BBC's article that the music is unremarkable, but that's, you know, we all make unremarkable music. They have they have short songs with few or no lyrics, illustrated with generic cover art, and short, non-descriptive song titles. So that seems more like somebody trying to create fake bands in order to make money, not a marketer trying to falsely inflate listens of a type of band. So
Yeah.
but now we have mysterycore. So I'm going to start a mysterycore band next week. You guys want to join me?
Yes. Oh my, yeah. I'll be a backup dancer gladly. Henry can play maracas, and I think Mizzy, you do oboe, right? Yeah, she does oboe. Let's talk about one last thing before we wrap up for today, and that is Microsoft making laptops out of cows. Or sorry, not Microsoft, HP, not Microsoft. HP has announced the HP Spectre. It is a laptop wrapped in leather. And this brought up the argument that perhaps more companies should create devices with experimental materials, or should experiment more with materials. Nilay Patel from The Verge was talking about the Spectre Folio from HP and had tweeted, I'm quoting, "It is crazy that HP is doing more interesting laptop design and material work than Apple right now." And he's talking about that leather, that rawhide, that cow skin design with leather.
This is a real on the market existing tablet, laptop, right?
This is it's $12.99.
Yeah.
And it's a very, like, as far as the laptop thingy, I don't even know what to call it a laptop, because it's kind of a tablet. It's got a stylus. As far as the laptop itself, it's very svelte and pretty, but it's wrapped in leather, which is interesting. And Renee, you sort of kind of talked about Apple. In return, you said you can't even imagine someone pitching rawhide, and I'm quoting again, in a crap trackpad to Ivan Schiller, but titanium or carbon fiber could be fun. So those material sciences make sense, but rawhide.
So I have this thing where, like, I get it. I totally get it, because I review product after product after product, and I'm only doing Apple. I can't imagine what it's like for our Windows Central editors with laptop after laptop, or our Android Central editors with phone and tablet after phone and tablet. Like, it must be quasi monotonous at some point. But one of the things I always loved about Walt Mossberg is that he never mistook. Like, he never made himself the customer. He always reviewed technology from the point of view of a real person. And yeah, if you've seen, 30 aluminum laptops, and then someone gives you one made out of a cow, like, that's novel, that's original. It's like, oh, look, the BlackBerry Passport is a square. It's not a rectangle phone. This is so cool. But oftentimes the reason a product is the way it is because that's what people want. That's what works. And when you make something different, it's not better. In some cases, it's worse. And the tech writers who are pumping this stuff are not going to pay the company back for the company's like, oh, we'll get some buzz from the tech reporters. We'll make this diamond shaped, or we'll cover it in Spanx, or like something. And then it comes out and they're like, oh yeah, this is cool and unusual, but it's garbage. And that's like even when you read the review for that laptop, it's like trackpad sucks. Like just basic things don't work very well. And what's that, like Microsoft, oh, we love this keyboard, then someone uses Cheetos on it and their fabric keyboard is ruined forever.
Oh my God, yes.
You've got to think about how this stuff is going to use. And I know so many people who are using 3-year-old, 4-year-old, 5-year-old Apple laptops, 7, 8-year-old Apple laptops, because the aluminum lasts. And the aluminum keyboard and everything like that, it holds up over time. And so, yeah, I like to see innovation, but I want it to be better, not just different.
Boom.
First, let's be careful using the word innovation when we're talking about slapping leather on the outside of a tablet, because that's not innovation. That's slapping leather on the outside of a tablet, or laptop. I'm sorry, I keep saying tablet because it actually looks like a tablet. It's a laptop. It's not a tablet. So sorry, but let me just say, he's not wrong. His wording is this: it's crazy that HP is doing more interesting laptop design and material work. It's interesting.
That's true.
It's definitely interesting. It's not necessarily a good thing, but it's interesting.
But why is Apple the bar? Like, again, I want to focus on Nilay because this is so many tech reviewers, and Nilay is not one of those people. But like Apple's been making aluminum MacBooks for a decade. That they're not interesting. Like it's not like they make them out of marshmallows one year and like foot fungus the next, and then the next year they stop. You know, it's like they've never been interesting.
Yeah, I see what you mean. And so going back to what you said, you know, we had talked about some of the topics we want to talk about during the show. We were sort of talking about this. I think the big thing here, the sort of discussion, is what you were talking about with Walt Mossberg, because too often I see and this applies to a lot of journalism, but I think it's especially prevalent in tech journalism. There is a lack of empathy. We have trouble putting ourselves in someone else's shoes, in this case, in someone else's thumbs or someone else's fingers. And so we are so focused on sort of what we see and what we like and what we want and what makes us unhappy and makes us happy, that we're not thinking about what the everyday person who's actually going to be buying these things would feel. It's different, you know, when you're talking about something like the Mac Pro. It's the Mac Pro. I'm not even talking about, you know, a MacBook Pro, but the Mac Pro, where this is for a very particular person, and there will always be the person who doesn't fit into that buys it anyway. But the point is, for that is a very particular product for a very particular person. And so it makes sense to have folks who are using those kinds of devices talking about them. But for something that's meant to be for many people, it does no one, like you said, the company, it does them no service. And then also to your readers, it does no good to them if you throw too much of yourself and your own personal biases into it. And I think about actually The Verge's original review of the Apple Watch. And I remember at the time seeing the video and hearing the complaints about notifications and how that just like ruined the Apple Watch because it was just too much noise on their wrist. And later I reviewed the Apple Watch, and as a person who does not have the following that Nilay has, and as a person who does not have as many, you know, different apps and services and things like that vying for my attention, I found the Apple Watch to be quite handy because there weren't, you know, and of course you're able to shut off the notifications that you don't want, but it was sort of presented as this makes this device bad kind of take. And it's not necessarily that the device is bad. It is the particular situation that the person was in. And it can be kind of hard with consumer technology to step out of one's own mindset, but that is, I think, what separates good from great reporting, is when you do take that extra time to consider. And when you do talk about, like, here's what I like about it and what I don't, you're very clear that these are the feelings that you yourself have versus what you think someone every day. And I think that's why too, and I know my brain's going all over the place here, but I think that's why too, those articles where occasionally I just saw one, I think it was the Facebook portal, where someone had their mom review the Facebook portal instead of them. And that report was very popular. And that's because it was given to someone who would actually be using that thing, because we're over here going, ew, Facebook, ew, privacy. Why also do I ever need a Facebook portal whenever I can just Skype with somebody? And the mom was going, oh, it's really handy to be able to just push a button and that's it. And I'm talking to my grandchild and I can read them a story. And so it's the difference between, you know, these products aren't necessarily made for us. And so I do like that
Facebook has its claws in that guy's mom now.
Yeah, which is sad. But I do like that, you know, Renee, you're keeping that in mind as you report on things, that we don't all think like that, or I should say that they don't all think like we do.
It was those original MacBook reviews when I like all my tech friends were complaining that how many dongles they'd need, and I just wanted to walk them over to the MacBook Pro table and say, "No, dear, this one is for you. You're not like like we're beyond the time where every single product has to be for you. Like figure out who the product is for, and then see if it meets the needs of that person."
Yeah,
It's like my favorite quote from Doctor Strange when the Ancient One says, "The greatest lesson of all, it's not about you."
Boom. Boom.
Yeah, yeah, and it's definitely when we're in that tech bubble, and by that I mean a bubble, not like some sort of thing that's the general, like the wider financial thing that will burst. But we protect ourselves in this bubble of technology, and we get new devices all the time that we're constantly reviewing, and we're constantly comparing which one's better, which one's better. But the reality is that people like our moms and our friends and our nieces and nephews, they don't care about that kind of stuff. They just care about whether or not it works and whether or not it has the features that they want. And that's more important than those sort of nitty gritty little things that everybody will complain about. The design, the innovation, the dongles, that's all nobody on outside, and nobody outside in the real world cares about that. But we have ruined them by making all these statements about these things. You know, we blow it out of proportion that you have to use a dongle, and then my friend comes to me and says, well, I'm never going to buy a MacBook Air because it only has USB-C. And obviously that's the most important thing, is to be able to have all these ports. And then you say to them, oh, really? What do you use with your laptop that requires you to have USB-A or you know, whatever the jack is? And then they go, oh, I guess I don't actually plug anything into my computer except my laptop. I didn't think about it that way. But they read all these things that we write, and they make their purchasing decisions based on that. And sometimes it's not good, because they will choose something that isn't perfect for them because they read 17 articles on the internet that said the keyboard sucks. But it only sucks to those people who are so particular that they actually know the differences between the 2002 keyboard and the 2016 keyboard. The average person doesn't know that, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that's the responsibility there that we have to be aware of and take into account when we do reporting, because other journalists have to do the same, and other journalists fail at doing it as well. And that's sort of where it can come back to be detrimental to people. And so we have to be better. We have to be better. I think that is going to do it for us this week. We had quite a bit to talk about. We talked about quite a bit here.
We went
on
over.
the iMore show.
We were Gabby.
We were Gabby today. I want to thank you all for listening, for tuning in and listening to us today. It was really nice of you, real swell of you. If Georgia Dow were here, she would tell you could find her on Twitter at Georgia_Dow, or you can head to anxiety-videos.com to check out some pretty incredible videos on things like emotional intelligence, anxiety, depression, conflict resolution, and so much more. Georgia and I are currently working through that conflict resolution video. No, I'm kidding. She's great. Wow, what am I trying to say here? Lori Gill, if people are looking for you online, where can they find you?
They can find me at Appoholic on Twitter, APPAHOLIK. I get that wrong every time for some reason. APPAH. APPAHOLIK. I'm just going to mumble through it and hope that people get what I'm going for. Spell Appoholic with a K with no C. Just do that. Oh my
God. And also at Lori Gill on most other things, right?
Yes.
Renee Ritchie, if people are looking to watch your videos or find you online, where can they do so?
I am at Renee Ritchie on all the social things. The videos are at youtube.com/vector show, and everything is at imore.com/vector.
Beautiful. If you are looking for me online, you can find me at chihuahua.coffee. That's CHIHUAHUA.coffee, which has links to all the things I do. Or you can find me over on most of the social networks at Micah Sargent. Thank you so much to Jim Metzendorf for editing the show and making us sound fantastic. We will, of course, be back next week with more. I hope that you have a great week or weekend, depending on when you're listening to this. And until then, adios. This has been the iMore Show.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Delightful to see you again. I'm going to stop this.